School leaders. We are in week 3 of our unit entitled Distinct, Living Above the Norm. We are in Matthew chapter 5, looking specifically at verses 21 through 26, thinking about the theme, Distinct in My Approach to Conflict. When it comes to conflict, have you ever noticed that many people err in one of two different ways? They're really either very eager to get into the conflict, they're just looking for a fight, or you got the other side where people are just peace at any cost and they will avoid conflict altogether. Well, in this little section on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus shows us a different way. He shows us to be proactive in a preventative kind of way. Now, Jewish folks of the day, and of course many of us as well, focused on the external, focused on what others see. And Jesus went against that, of course, here in the Sermon on the Mount especially, but in many other places. But this was not a new teaching. The Old Testament was chock full of these teachings as well. So this was nothing new. Scriptures like, man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And I desire mercy, not sacrifice. See, these are scriptures that those Jewish folks knew, but still they were concerned about what others saw and thought that was what was the most important. But Jesus focused, of course, and continues to focus on the root of the problem, not the symptom. Because when you take care of the root, then you take care of the problem. You know, this is very similar to trying to get rid of dandelions in your yard. You know, you can take and just scrape that weed at ground level and, you know, get rid of the greenery and maybe the flower as well. But when you do that, the problem, being the dandelion, continues to reappear. It's only when you dig out the root and get the root out that the problem or the dandelion goes away. Now, it's more laborious in the short term, but it's more profitable in the long term. To me, that's very similar to Jesus' analogy about a dirty cup, how it can be very clean on the outside and look very nice in a vessel that someone would want to use. But when you look on the inside, it can be dirty and just yucky, and who would want to drink something out of this? So, similarly, Jesus takes this approach to anger. It's the outside is important, but what's more important is the inside. So I'm going to condense and paraphrase a little bit here. Take a little bit of liberty as we go through here on these verses. In verse 21, Jesus says, "You've heard it said, don't murder, do not murder." Now that's the action, that's what people can see. In verse 22, he comes back and says, "But I say to you these things, don't hate, don't be unjustly angry." Because see, that's the attitude, that's the root. So those couple of verses deal with a person having something against someone else. But what if someone else is angry with me? Then what am I supposed to do there? Well, that's answered in verses 23 through 27. Again, I'm going to use some modern vernacular here. So before I go to church, before I can go to church and truly worship, I need to make sure that my relationships with others are right. Even if they're the ones that have the problem, even if they're the ones that are mad at me for some reason. Because see, our vertical relationship, our relationship with God, between us and God, that's hindered when our relationship with other people is off. When that's out of balance, then our relationship with God can't be all that it can be. On the flip side, we can't truly love other people as we should unless we have that vertical relationship right. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship that you've got the relationship with me and God and the relationship with me and other people, and if either one of those is off, it affects the other. So you're probably going to be teaching this lesson, and somebody may raise the question. If they don't ask it, they'll probably have it in their mind, so go ahead and address these issues. And they're going to say, but wait a minute. What if they don't want to reconcile? What do I do then? Well, Romans 12:18 gives us a good answer to that. It says, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." That is, make the effort. Now, not all the time is that effort going to be greeted and met with the love and repentance and fellowship that you desire. But as far as it depends on you, you make the effort to reconcile that relationship. And then also somebody might ask, well, we've been talking about anger and how we're not supposed to be angry, but didn't Jesus get angry? And of course that is true, yes. In John chapter 2 is a story of Jesus going into the temple and getting very angry and driving the money changers out. And it's important to note the difference between a righteous anger, and that's when sin is the cause of the anger, when it's a reaction to sin. In our lives, it may be a disobedient child. Children are supposed to obey their parents. And when they don't, that's a sin, and we get angry about that. If a spouse is unfaithful, that's a sin, and we can get angry about those kind of things. That's a righteous anger when it's in response to sin. It can become unrighteous, though, and that unrighteous anger is when it's hateful, when you want to hurt, when you want to carry out some revenge. So we have to be careful, because that righteous anger, let's say a spouse has been unfaithful and we're angry about that, that can lead to unrighteous anger. That can lead to us wanting to hurt and to have revenge on that person. So we have to be very careful in those areas. Which leads us to a good principle which is found in Ephesians 4:26, which says, in your anger, do not sin. So the Bible doesn't tell us not to be angry, but it tells us when we're going to be angry, it should be a righteous anger, and we should not sin in that anger. And that if we know that somebody is angry against us about something maybe we did, or maybe we didn't even know what happened, we need to make every effort to make that relationship right. So I hope that's given you a couple of things to think about as you prepare for your lesson this week. Hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you Sunday.